Hello, thank you so much everyone for joining us. I'm very excited to be speaking to Nicole today. Give us a wave, Nicole.
Hi everyone.
It is fantastic when Nicole and I get together because we always end up having some really awesome, often quite serious, passionate and just pretty truthful conversations. So I'm excited to be inviting in an audience to this particular chat. But before I get carried away with myself, because we could dive right in already, Nicole, I just want to give you a chance to tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Nicole Blyth and what is RelocateGuru?
So yeah, thanks so much for inviting me. It was such a pleasure. I always love having a chat with you, and yes to all the truth bombs that we tend to have. So my story is that I moved around a lot. I added it up 16 times so far, and I got to the point where it's like, why is this still so difficult? And why, like with all the technology that we have available, why isn't this easier? I grew up in oil and gas, like a lot of friends work in oil and gas, and especially the expat spouses have to give up their careers, pick up their kids and move wherever. And they all complain of the same things. And it's like, in this day and age, why isn't there a technology solution to make this easier? Why isn't this easy? Whether you're just moving from Aberdeen to Edinburgh, which was where this idea came from, or from Abu Dhabi to Houston. It's the same problems that we want to create. I want to help create a platform that helps you to connect with your community before you even arrive, so you can kind of just feel that sense of belonging and yeah, share all that local knowledge in one place. And it's been kind of a 2-year journey so far, and it's been really hard because it's like I haven't had any funding. I've been doing this like, the bootstrap is so thin, it's virtually a thread. And yeah, just doing it solo, and it's rough, you know. But when I speak to people, when I tell people what I do, they all tell me their problem of the last time they moved, or their friend that had a major issue, or they wish they had, the thing that I hear over and over again is like, they wish they had this app the last time they moved because it would have saved them so much pain. And
Right.
that keeps me going.
Right.
I've been invited to be a speaker in Bangkok next month at a Families in Global Transition conference. And that's kind of the first time I went to that conference, it felt like home. I didn't understand where I fitted in the world because I've moved around so much. And when I went to that conference, it was like, I feel at home straight away. These are perfect strangers. I've never met them before, but I feel at home. And they were all saying the same stories. And it's like, this is where I need to, this is my mission. This is what I need to do. So anytime I kind of feel like throwing in the towel, I end up having a conversation with someone which resonates with that. And it's like, okay, I got to keep going a little bit longer.
Right, and that is something that we so often talk about, right? Because when I hear you speak, I can hear you've fallen in love with the problem. You fall in love with the people who experience that problem. And every time you have a wobble and you go back and you find that watering hole of these people experiencing this problem, and I know I can help, like you're reignited again. And I know that that's what your guiding star is. It's what gives you the energy even through the tough times. But things that we've spoken about is, how do you have examples of when you've really been up against it? You're like, well, like I just can't anymore because I've risked too much or I've lost too much. What have those moments been like, and what has the story you've been telling yourself?
It got sort of close to the wire before Christmas, where we got back from Web Summit and sort of like I had a discussion with my husband, sort of like where it's like the finances were getting really tight. There was no sign of any money coming in to do the development work I needed. I wasn't making any money for the family by any means. So it's like something needed to change because my husband was just overwhelmed with trying to balance the books. So I made a deal that if I didn't get onto an accelerator to get the funding that I needed by December, because that was when I think, and get a job, to get some monthly income coming in, a part-time job, then I would throw in the towel and just find a job, and like, or just even just shelf it for 6 months or a year and then come back to it later. But it's funny, like I think creating deadlines like that kind of sort of makes the universe sort of like throw things at you. Right. So somebody that I had met through my network, well, through all my entrepreneurial activities, sort of like he was looking for someone for marketing part-time. So I was like, hey, how about me? And so, yeah, so we get on really well. So he's super flexible, totally gets the startup thing and has been so supportive. So that was obviously meant to be. So that's helps alleviate some of the stress at home and keeps the lights on. And I got onto an accelerator program at my university, which has given me the funding to do the next phase of development on the app. So that's given me another 6 months of runway.
Right. And something we talk about a lot is the difference between what needs to be done and maybe what our egos or what our perception of like, but this is what, my journey should look like this and it should feel like this. And I think we understand that it should feel difficult, but still, how do you match the reality of, so for yourself, you were saying, this is the deadline and I need to get a part-time job and this needs to happen. This is the outcome. How did you really sit with that and think, this is the way it's going to pan out? How did you feel about that?
No, as soon as I got the job, got the email through saying that I got accepted for the job, I was in floods of tears because I felt like a big fat failure.
Right.
Why? I was ugly crying because that was not what I was supposed to be doing. Like, that was not my vision. My vision was to be a CEO of this like growing startup, not an employee for someone else, even though it's a fantastic opportunity and like all the good stuff. And it's like, yeah, you've got a job. But then it's like that to me equated failure.
Yeah. And how do you work through that? So those moments where you feel that, or you hear yourself saying that to yourself pretty loudly on repeat, if you're anything like me, what kind of tools do you use to build that resilience to check yourself?
I think it's having some really good friends like that are in that space, because friends who aren't working on their own business or they won't get it. Family members will not get this because they'll be like, what are you crying about? You've got a job, like you should be happy. What's the problem? They don't get it. Whereas friends who are in like that side of it, they understand the passion that you've put into it, the late nights, the like seemingly endless nights of working on this. So they get it, and so they will be with you in that space.
Yeah. And I know you've mentioned your husband there and you have a family. How do you find that kind of plays on your mind in terms of time spent, money spent, focus spent? How do you balance that? Or when do you feel like, hey, I'm not balancing, like that word's not even close to where I'm at?
Yeah. I suppose it's like balance is a fake, that's not going to happen. Like, I think trying to find this elusive balance in life and thinking, oh, I can control my time and sort of like have work-life balance because I'm self-employed. Lonely. Like, you work 10 times harder working self-employed than you do for an employee.
Yeah.
Even though I work really hard for my employer, it's like once my hour's done, that's it. But when it's your baby, your business, that's 24/7. Like, your business is your other baby.
Yeah.
And if it's a new infant baby, they need a lot of attention. And so it's seeing it as seasons rather than trying to get a daily balance. Like, yes, you need to try and look after your health a bit, still sort of like find some time for relationships, but and sort of like trying to get the bases covered. But yeah, it's finding different things. So like with my son, what I've started doing now is sort of like getting, like the HelloFresh boxes.
Right.
So we now sort of like do one of those sort of like every other week or so, and we cook together. So that's our kind of spending time together, teaching him a new skill, cooking, and eating something healthy, and cooking, then doing one of the chores all at the same time. So it's like ticking lots of boxes, like yeah. It's being efficient with those things. So that's one example that has worked quite well recently.
And I'm sure those moments you probably feel like, hey, I am like winning at life because I'm doing all of these things, and you know, we're cooking, we're spending time together, it's great. I'm sure there are those moments where you're like, if someone could see me now, like embarrassed about like what is happening or what is taking place. But how do you feel like you manage with the, well, I do what I need to do?
Yeah, like my post, like he has so much screen time, like during the school, like the half term was hell, because it's like I just felt like all the mum guilt, because it's like trying to juggle working part-time from home, do my business and my son off school. It was just a mess, and he ended up on screen time for too much time, and actually he was taken, a neighbor took him out on a hill walk with her son, and they decided to run off and got lost on the hills for a couple of hours. So me in the middle of a Zoom call with an investor, got phone calls sort of like saying, I've lost your son, and sort of like the mum like completely hysterical and in a panic. So I had to like, okay, I've got to go. So like trying to juggle that just didn't work. So lesson learned, holiday camp, and just have to suck up the cost.
Right, and I would love to dig into that with you, because I know that you're quite happy to name privilege when we see it, and so that is something that you're luckily able to do, or will be able to do sometimes. But what are those uphill barriers for especially women in business when that's not necessarily open to them?
Yeah, it's just like the constant assumption for women in particular to be in charge of the childcare. Like, as amazing as my husband is, like we kind of split it 50-50 pretty much, and he's very hands-on at the weekend, which gives me space to like decompress and focus. So that is amazing. But it's usually sort of like the school holidays that are the hardest ones to kind of juggle, because they're so long, and the school day is so short as well. And it's like it's down to you, which reduces how many hours you can work and earn money, and then the cost of the childcare is like more than what you earn. So is it worth it? So it does become a bit of an uphill battle, and there is no easy way around it.
And do you hear that from a lot of the women that you work with, I guess, especially thinking of spouses when they're maybe trying to keep up a remote business while they're traveling with their husbands and with their families? Like, do you hear that from customers?
Yeah, it varies sort of like depending on the location, because in some locations it's almost mandatory to hire a nanny in certain places, because you're considered you're a bad foreigner if you don't provide jobs for local people by employing them in your household as a nanny or something like that. So that gives some help, like, because you have a house cleaner, like a cleaner or a nanny and somebody to cook the dinners, so that can help a bit, but that comes with another layer of management.
Things to manage and to juggle. I would love to talk about where you see kind of what success feels like to you, because we've been talking before about, obviously metrics are important and our business metrics are important, but more towards the what does that actually feel like when you were describing earlier, if you wanted to be the CEO of a growing company, would I be happy, or is that grass is always greener? Like, what is it that you want to actually feel, and so therefore what is it you want to be doing day to day?
Because I was having this conversation with some friends the other day. It came up, it's like, well, why is it that being a CEO of a large company is sort of like put on this pedestal? It's like that is the measure of success, to be like the next Uber or Airbnb or whatever. like this huge unicorn company that is the measure of success. And it's like, well, what's wrong, or like, why can't it be equally seem successful if you are a freelancer from home, you work the hours that you feel happy with, you get to do the work that inspires you, and support your family comfortably, and charge what you feel like you're getting valued for? Why isn't that seen as successfully, as much as a success? And it's whatever, what vision you see. And it also needs to align with your partner's vision for your family too. Like if there's a disconnect with that, that causes so many frictions, because if like they're quite happy and settled in like where they're at, like if you're like, I want to take over the world, they're gonna, oh, but that requires them to go out, like do extra stuff that they're not comfortable with.
Yeah.
So like, is that the right course of action for your, not just you and your, but also your family? And sort of like, well, do you have the time? Like, if you want to be like the CEO of this huge company, like, are you okay with the sacrifices that entails?
Right. And I think so much of what you're highlighting there is just how important communication is, because actually, yes, somebody's vision is going to be the CEO of a 500-person company, and that is right, and that is fulfilling for them. For others, it'll be, I want to be a freelancer, like you said, and just be in my vibe. And there's a whole scale in between and that. But I think the most important thing is, have we done the work to do the self-reflection of where do we want to sit? And then have we done that communication of, well, this is my vision, what is yours, and what does that mean for us and our family? And there's so much involved in that, isn't there? There's the feelings, there's financially, what can we cope with? There's practically, well, actually, like maybe we have things that will not enable us to do that. So much relies on having those conversations. And is that something that you think you had full awareness of before you started the journey? Was there a tick list that you ran through, or these things that you kind of maybe hit a speed bump or a road bump and gone, I need to talk about this?
There are so many speed bumps, and it also depends on your partner. Sort of like, guys generally aren't the best at communicating the emotional fluffy, like generally, like, or we communicate in different ways.
Right.
So being able to be on the same page. And also my husband is an accountant, so sort of speaking to him, I had to speak to him like I'm speaking to an investor, which is practice. Because it's like, he's like, okay, what's the return on investment? Like, when's this going to happen? Like, he's like, like, show me the spreadsheet. You know?
Really?
And it's like, here it is. Here's the pitch deck. Yeah. But on your pitch deck, you don't say like, well, who's going to do the laundry and who's going to pick up the slack on the hoovering and the life to manage the bank accounts and like all the life admin that kind of goes with it. And it's also this expectation, like if you are in a startup and you're pre-revenue and it's like, well, and he's earning all the money, he will feel that's unfair that he's then also picking up the slack at home. So it's sort of like, and I've definitely have felt that sort of like my work in my startup isn't valued because I'm not making revenue, that it's therefore not valuable.
Yeah, I would love to speak to you about that, because I've been having a lot of conversations with people who are working on kind of team culture recently. And one of the things that comes back again and again when people are growing their teams is, how do we separate people's feeling of worth from what their output is? So you're talking about, without monetary value, I don't know my value. For some people, if they're an employee or they're a team member, it could be, well, I don't get through as much tick boxy stuff in my to-do list as the next person, so I don't feel it as of value. How do we go about, I guess, two questions, recognizing our own value and practicing that and celebrating that, but also seeing other people's value where maybe it's different from ours? Yeah,
because the items in the tick boxes, like they might have bigger value. Like you might only get through one tick box, but that was maybe a massive tick box.
Right.
So whereas the other person might have it might be lots of tiny little things, like 100 tiny little things against one big thing might be the same. And it's, well, how do you define that? There's no easy way. And to the monetary side of thing, I'm struggling with that, to be honest. So I have zero answers. If anybody has any suggestions, let me know.
Yeah. It's like that classic, it's something, I don't know, again, if anyone has any better way of putting it, but when you're at like an event or a dinner party or you're networking or something, not within the tech scene, but out with, and someone says, gee, oh, what do you do? And I always feel that kind of like, I don't want to tell you like my title so that you can judge what I do. So I'm that person who kind of goes, oh, well, I'm an auntie, I mountain bike, I love to run. And they look at me and I'm like, oh, I really enjoy traveling, as if they're like looking for another. I'm just like, oh, what do you mean? What do I do? Like, those are all things that I do. And again, yes, I kind of do it because I'm like, why are you trying to put me in a box? But maybe there's something in that, like, do you feel that people ask you, what is it you're doing, or what is it you're still doing, and how do you?
I have a similar reaction to the question, where are you from?
Okay.
One, why does it matter? And two, like, where does it mean? Because when I say like, oh, I live in Scotland, they go, you don't sound Scottish. And I'm like, okay, how far back in my history do I have to go? Do you want like, so I end up having to trace my ancestral tree for like
points.
But a conversational flow, what do I do? It's like, I've created an app, it's on the App Store, and that's usually enough to suffice. If they want to delve deeper, that's up to them. And I don't really worry about it, but I think I definitely feel happier about saying that I've created an app, that you feel proud that I've created something and it's on the App Store. That's pretty amazing. But yeah, it's not at the scale I want it to be at. But what makes me really excited, and when they turn back, it's like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. I've got it on my phone, and that gives me chills. That gets me really excited.
Yeah, I mean, to have somebody actually use something that you have built, like that's it.
Yeah.
So tell me more about Bangkok and what that experience is going to be like.
That's going to be. I've never been a speaker at a conference before, so that is good. That's really, really cool. It's so exciting to be asked to be part of a panel talking about social media for making a global life easier, and how we can use technology for good rather than for all the negative sides. So it's so I'm on a panel with lots of with 3 other amazing ladies talking about different factors that are involved in that. So it would be really cool. And yeah, no, it means a lot, because it feels like I'm going home. It's a very nurturing environment. Like most conferences, they feel very work and sort of like overwhelming.
Yeah.
This isn't like this. This is like going to family.
It's incredible. You feel that
going to family reunion.
Amazing.
And it's like, yeah, you should definitely come.
I can hear the recruitment in your voice. It sounds great. And I think though there's testament in that you have found your people, and by that I mean, yes, your support network, but also your customer base. And I think that when we who are product makers and builders are spending time with that customer segment, then it does feel right? You feel a click, and you feel the sense of, oh, I'm solving this problem, and that's what the connection and the belonging feels like. Yeah. I would love to have your take on, if we are lucky enough to be broadcasting to any entrepreneurs, anyone who's thinking about taking the step to become a founder, what are the things you kind of wish you'd known before you started the journey? What are the things you love and the challenges that you experience?
I would tell them, don't make an app. It's unless you know how to code yourself, it's expensive. It takes a heck of a lot longer. Make a minimum viable product with a WordPress site or whatever. Like free tools that you can use easily yourself.
So number one, let's just repeat that because it is like headline news. If you are not a creator yourself, jump in with free tools and create a concierge product to prove that there's a need.
Yes.
Okay, 100% we're going to tweet that.
Like if your like ideal target market, like if your ideal customer is using your product that you've made for free or like on your free tools, that and that proves a need, then you, and even paying you, then you can invest that into developing the next phase.
Spot on. Okay, what else do you wish you'd known?
Developers often say yes when they don't know how to do things.
Okay, what's that journey felt like for you?
Frustrating. So yeah,
founder.
Yeah, because and sort of like getting to the point where it's like you've got this really clear vision in your head, and communicating it to someone who doesn't speak the same language as you, but not they speak English, but developers and creative people speak different languages, and being able to communicate that is different. So
there's a huge piece there in terms of the absolute artwork that is somebody who is a translator, a conduit, a bridge. There are some incredible jigsaw piece people, and I mean that with all the love because they are incredible, being able to put together those creative and very technical endeavors. And you're right, it's how do I define, or as Brené Brown says, how do I paint done? What does done look like? And your version of done could be entirely different from mine. And unless we describe it, we're both going to go, yeah, great, I'll do that. And we'll be like, that is not what this is what I thought. This is what I thought. Like, is that ringing true?
Exactly. And I love Brené Brown. Like,
I just thought I'd throw in a Brené Brown quote for you.
All of her things. That's another tip. Read all her books. Read all Brené Brown books.
And why Brené Brown? For someone who is new to hearing Brené Brown, why in particular would she be a starter for 10 in terms of you're going to be a founder? Here is your starting reading list.
I think there's lots of tools in there about leadership, about getting clear about you, just like certain, being vulnerable, but still, getting over the fear of stuff, like, and stop letting fear getting you to where you want to go. Because a lot of the times, like when you get stuck or you're like procrastinating about things, it's because fear is stopping you. Like you're scared of you might be even scared of this, what the success will mean.
Right. So
you'll put up the barriers, and you need to deal with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. So her Power of Vulnerability is a really good starting point. And I've also just finished a workshop course on Dare to Lead. So for anyone with a team, fantastic base point, because like you say, she definitely goes into the reflective piece, but I find her really practical in terms of these are things you can deploy right now with your team. Yeah. It's not something necessarily that the whole team or the whole organization need to read to be able to work on. So I find it really practical.
All spot on. Yeah, just all of those things. So that is definitely something I would introduce to anyone thinking of creating a startup, is to do that reflection work and to really nail down like your core, like why are you doing this? Because it is going to get tough. Yeah. The poop is going to hit the fan and you're going to want to quit more than once. So what is going to keep driving you to keep going? Because money isn't going to be a good enough answer.
Totally fair. And just as a lasting point, because our last point to round off on, I know that you are an absolute queen at this. So for people who are like, okay, but I don't know the scene, the ecosystem, the people, like you said, it's really important to surround yourself by people who get it. How does one, no matter where they are, location-wise, we've got viewers all over the world, how do you tap into those environments? How do you go and get yourself known and connect with people who feel like and think like you do?
Oh, this is, good one. So there are many, many resources. Facebook's a great place to start. If you are living abroad and you don't know where to start, you feel like you don't have an entrepreneur ecosystem, there's a really fantastic group that I'm a part of called Tandem Nomads. Emil, who runs it, is based in New York, but her mission is to help expat spouses build their businesses effectively, and she's amazing. So that's one good resource that anyone can tap into. But yeah, like find out if there's an accelerator program going on in your city. There's going to be meetups. Go to meetup.com, stick in entrepreneur. There's gonna be a meetup near you, anywhere. Go to it. Check out the local university. There's going to be an entrepreneur startup society. Say hi, like get clued in. Yeah, find out the agencies. Like the governments normally have resources. Like in Scotland, we are so lucky. We've got tons. We've got Business Gateway, we've got Scottish Enterprise, you've got for students, Scottish Institute of Enterprise, you've got Elevator, you've got Acorn, you've got eSpark. There are there are dozens of places where you can go and hook into community. And like Scotland's amazing because it's quite small. You do end up bumping into the same faces, and everyone is so willing to share and help each other out. I don't know if this is true everywhere, but definitely in Scotland, we want to help see everyone else succeed, and genuinely will cheerlead each other on and share resources and help pass around like the goodness that there is. And
that's something is to ask, isn't it? Like, yeah, pick up the phone or ask, or if you connected with them on LinkedIn, you can ask, or if you're part of a Slack community, ask. Yeah. Because definitely, like you say, I am so grateful to people who've helped me along my journey, and I want to pay that forward. And there are a lot of people like that.
There are so many, and it's even like, oh, I need to get. You end up finding that, oh, I need to get my articles of association done, or like things that are really tricky. But and Marie Forleo is another one of my go-to things, and that's a really good community as well. If you go to Marie Forleo, there's a Facebook group, and you don't have to join up with B School if you don't want to. But yeah, she's got tons of free resources. And she says everything's figure outable. Everything. So even when I started, it's like, I didn't know how to do a VAT return or file my corporate tax return, but I figured it out.
You know, that's something that, this is going to be a random segue of a quote. That's something that Judy Murray, Andy Murray and Jamie Murray's mum, who is a tennis coach in her own right, an incredible trainer and facilitator. She's an amazing woman, very inspiring. But it's something that she says, that she wouldn't necessarily see herself as an entrepreneur. But when they moved to Spain and then the US, they lived in different places to enable her children to have the best experience and training to become tennis superstars. And she said, I didn't know how to exactly that, file tax returns. I didn't know how to apply for all these different bank accounts in different countries, or she took herself on a physio course, so that they didn't have a physio obviously when they were younger. So she's like, well, I learned how to be a physio to look after them. So I love that you're just like, well, everything's figure outable. You can go and you can learn it, and the resources are there.
Yeah, and like you can figure out that, and then as things develop, you go like, okay, I could spend the time figuring out how to do this, or I could get a freelancer to do this.
You read my mind, like freelancers, virtual assistants, know what you are able to delegate, right?
Yeah, and it's like, if you can delegate stuff, and I'm kind of delegating to a lot of student projects right now. I'm very lucky that I think I'm employing half of the Scotland students right now. I've got students in Aberdeen and Edinburgh and Glasgow working on bits of my project and going like, you did this bit, you did this bit. And that gives me new skills of like how to manage teams without the cost.
Yeah.
Win. but and getting something out of it. But it's so that's one way to get things done. But yeah, everything's, and yeah, if you are an expat, you have these skills nailed because you've done it before. You've already figured out how to get visas and move your stuff across countries and like all the regulations and setting up bank accounts and things. You have these skills already, so you will find sort of like turning it into being an entrepreneur sort of like, oh, is that all? Like, was that it?
Yeah.
Why does everyone make such a big deal about that?
That's an incredible, powerful thing though. What experiences in your life have led you to this point that you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, and actually you've probably developed those skills in different ways? So there's so much to take away from that talk there. I really appreciate your time. Always love getting together with you and having a good old chat. I think this is just going to be great for those who are sitting thinking about like, yeah, how do I take the next step? So thank you as always, Nicole.
Yeah.
You're a gem. And I will definitely make sure to signpost everybody to RelocateGuru so they can check that out more. And hopefully we will see each other again soon.
Yes, look forward to it. Good luck, everyone. And yeah, good luck on your journeys.
Bye.
Bye.